So in any gated community, chances are extremely likely, like 90% likely, that there's going to be some sort of leasing restriction. And with those, common leasing restrictions are 90-day minimum rental and maybe you can transfer your membership 3 or 4 times a year. And so what that means, whenever I say you can transfer your membership, that means that's how many different tenants basically you can have in the unit over the course of the year. So if you're renting your unit annually, you don't care, right? But if you're doing a seasonal rental, then this is where it comes into play. So to further elaborate on that, I'll tell you a little bit more about that in an example, but let's look at the other leasing restrictions. So there's also some communities where it's a 30-day minimum rental and you can transfer your membership 12 times a year. So basically you can rent it to a different person every month, basically. I mean, and there's nuances with that, but basically that's what that means. Some communities, and this is more like when you get on the beach, for example, or in certain environments like that, they might have 7-day minimum rentals. And then sometimes they have daily rentals, but those are really more like on the beaches. But if you're in like a regular gated community, you're going to be at 30 or 90 days initially. As these communities progress, sometimes they may decide to change the leasing restrictions. And so is that good or is that bad? And I think you have to be very careful from a fiscal standpoint on that. So what will happen, let's say if you are an owner and you purchased in a community where you wanted to do 30-day minimum rentals, right? So you're getting in a different tenant every month and you're maximizing your cash flow, right? And then something happens, the association changes the rules, which they have to do. So if they did, you and your little other investor friends would need to vote no. But they could say, okay, we're going to change it to a 90-day minimum rental. And I've seen this happen at a few communities. And this is where it goes to sort of okay. I mean, it's not horrible if you're doing a 90-day minimum rental, but it definitely affects your bottom line. So I think that the intention of making that change is that the owners that are voting on it, they want to make sure that there's not a lot of transient people in and out of their community. But if a renter's, this is just my thought as a homeowner in some of these communities, if somebody's going to be there for 30 days, then it's not going to be your partiers that are going to the beach for a daily rental or a weekly rental, right? So it's generally going to be a snowbird. It's going to be a corporate relocation. It's going to be something like that. So I don't see the benefit in changing it to 90 days, but that's just me. And that's really not what I'm here to talk about. I'm talking about how does that affect investors from a fiscal standpoint. And so what that does is that limits you a lot in your seasonal rentals and your off-season rentals, because if you have to rent it for at least 3 months, most people want January, February, March, right? So if you only leased it for January through March, what is the likelihood that you're going to get the exact same tenant that wants to take it April, May, and June? It's very low, right? So, or in the other shoulder months, so to take October, November, December, also very low. That doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, but you have to negotiate on the price for that to happen. So you're not able to maximize your income. And so that's where that hurts investors. Where it hurts the homeowners that initially voted to implement that change is with the property values. Because if you're an investor and you purchased a home under these certain terms with the expectation that you'll receive within a range of X and Y in your rental income, if now these restrictions affect your income, then what are you going to do? You're going to sell. And if that change happens, right? So that change is going to happen. It's going to affect all the investors. Then what's going to happen? All the investors are going to sell at the same time. Supply and demand, the property values decline. Now the replacement buyers, so you're going to have more properties on the market. And then the replacement buyers, now you've just taken out the investors from your buying pool, right? Because they're going to know about the change because you have to disclose that. So now investors are not going to want to buy in that association, right? And so now you've limited the number of buyers that come into the property to look at the resales. And so now the property values are going to decline. So it's not a great decision. And I just want to make you aware of this, because if you're looking at, if you're buying it as an investment and you're looking in a community where it is a 90-day minimum rental, then you might want to explore other options, unless, and this is where the sort of comes in, unless you plan to use it yourself as well. So we have plenty of owners that purchase and their intention is to use it themselves and then supplement the cost of the fees and such with occasional rentals. So those kind of people, perfect. It's great. If this is the home you want or the community you want or whatever, then go for it. You know, if that's going to make you happy. If you're looking at it strictly from an investment standpoint, you should probably explore other options. And that's not just on short-term rentals. That also happens on annual rentals. So sometimes you'll see, and this is more rare, but sometimes you'll see associations will try to change it to 180-day minimum rental, and the intention of, or 365-day rental. And so the intention of that is that you no longer rent your property like as a seasonal rental. So now it's an annual rental. So those people that are renting it are going to be there year round, right? And that makes sense sort of from like the neighbor's perspective. You know, as communities ages, sometimes people don't want to see a lot of change. And so that definitely cuts down on that. But again, that greatly affects the property value. So unfortunately, I think a lot of times when homeowners associations or condo associations make these decisions, they're not looking at the big picture. So they're just looking at, okay, I'm going to feel better if, you know, I don't see new faces. That's going to make me feel more comfortable, whatever. But at the same time, if your property value declines 10, 20, 30%, wouldn't you rather see new faces? I think so. I would. But anyway, so for those of you that are looking at this, I will say it is difficult to make those changes to the association. So let's say if you live in if you purchased in a community that has a 30-day minimum rental, for example, it's difficult to change to a 90-day. They have to have so many votes. So as long as you and your other investors are staying on top of things, staying active within the association, and making sure that you vote appropriately whenever these changes happen, then you'll be okay. So that is that in a nutshell. And if you have any questions about this, please feel free to give us a call. Don't forget to like, subscribe, press the little doorbell button, and don't forget to always ask for Alisa, because I got 3 little kids and they all need new shoes.